Who does? Me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, stand up. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity to come together with you. Please give us wisdom and guidance. Help us be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. Lord, we ask you to bless the citizens of our town. Put special blessings on the medical care facility. They continue to battle. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Okay, thank you. So just as a refresher, if you're on with us, unless you're going to speak, and if you've got two devices next to each other, they do tend to feed back, so just be aware of that. You may want to set them further apart or make sure they're both muted or however you're operating. So thank you. Do you have Kim Jackson?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right. So that brings us up to public comment. Anyone wish to address the board this morning that's on the call? All right, hearing none. We'll move to the consent agenda.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
That's not that big of a deal.
Only motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I second that.
Thank you. Any additions or corrections to the two items under consent agenda? Hearing none. Roll call, Jody.
Commissioner Carolyn? Commissioner Carolyn? Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaines?
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley?
Yes.
Commissioner Caswell?
Yes.
Thank you. Consent agenda is approved. Correspondence is listed. Any comments on correspondence?
Mark,
Yes.
the only comment that on the inspection department, we need good news. They considerable soil erosion FEMA because of the project out here by where that project before. So we're ahead right $65,000 in getting erosion money. That's good. That'll help offset. We're going to because of the other.
Okay. It's the soil erosion. Anyone else have a comment on correspondence?
I still think somebody needs to mute their microphone. We're getting huge feedback. I couldn't hear anything Bruce said.
Yes, I would also like to concur. I didn't hear anything Bruce said at all. There was a lot of static.
Can you hear plainly now?
Yes.
Repeat what you said.
That's good, Bruce.
Okay, what I said was in the correspondence, Commissioner Games gave us a county inspection department report, and I wanted to point out to you that in that report, the amount of money that we're taking in for soil erosion permit fees is about 60 to 65,000. We've already taken in that much than what we anticipate taking in the entire year. So that, at least financially, is positive. Will help offset some of the other losses that we're going to be looking at.
Thank you. That was much clearer that time.
That additional money, I might add, is coming from the windmill project that they're putting in out here in my neck of the woods, and that project is moving ahead full speed.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on correspondence? Okay,
In the correspondence,
go ahead.
now anything about the draft of the COVID-19 preparedness and response plan, or will it be later under you? I couldn't hear anything.
Yep.
Mark, we're losing you.
You're losing sound on this end?
Yeah, we couldn't hear what you were talking, your lips were moving and we couldn't hear anything you said.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Maybe.
Okay. I don't know. Can you hear me now all right?
Yes, we're going to discuss the preparedness plan under your section of the agenda, correct?
That's correct. Thank you. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
since there is an action item with it, we'll just hold any discussion on that and do it at that time.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Well, I believe that brings us up to the regular agenda. We'd entertain a motion to approve the regular agenda.
Mark,
I
do you
move
want
that
to
we approve the regular agenda?
20-042? We need to add that.
I'll second that motion.
Need to add 20-042.
20,
This one,
yep,
that's the MGT.
20-042.
Under Bruce's report.
Yes. So by consensus, can we just add that in, folks? And then we'll vote on the agenda as amended. Everybody all right with?
That's fine, so moved.
Okay, okay. By consensus, we're adding that in. That was kind of a late entry. Anything? Let me back up a minute. So we've got a motion to approve the regular agenda. Who moved that, please? Carlin moved that. Who supported?
Yes.
Okay, Caswell supported. Okay, we're ready to go then. Any other additions to the agenda? Hearing none. Roll call on the regular agenda.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Hayes? Commissioner Wiley?
Yes?
Commissioner Caswell?
Yes.
Commissioner Carroll?
Yes.
Thank you. Regular agenda is approved. We have no standing order business this morning. Ruth, Human Services report, please.
Okay.
Hey, Mark,
Yes, sir.
can you tell the people again to mute their phone?
Anyone that's on that is not speaking should mute, if you would, please. Okay, Ruth, you can unmute and talk. So,
All right. This morning at 8:43 a.m., a Michigan Works director's report and some other committee reports and stuff like that came in. And I read the director's report quickly. And then at 8:50 a.m., I sent it out to all the commissioners. So I'm sure that none of you have had time to read it yet because it just came in at 8:43. But what I want to point out is there's a good article in there. One of the first couple articles by Bill wrote an article about the unemployment issue. And it really helps to understand what the issue is, other than just saying, you know, we can't get through on the phone and things like that. Everybody knows that. But what Bill wrote is really understanding the role of Michigan Works and how they play into the unemployment system and what's happening with that. And so I encourage you to read that article that Bill wrote, especially if I still have one person, all my people that have had issues with unemployment are all taken care of, except I still have one that's hanging out there that still has not gotten her unemployment, and she filed on March 28th. And she's just gotten all wound up and has not received anything yet. So anyway, Julie and I are on Michigan Works together. It's a 2-person board. This month, our meeting has been canceled, and they're hoping to have a meeting in June. So that's Michigan Works. Now, as far as Lifeways is concerned, Julie and I participated together in interviews last week on Monday for several hours with the candidates for the Lifeways appointment. That was on Monday. I won't talk about that anymore right now because I think Julie's going to talk about it. But I did that. The Lifeways committees that I'm on this year, I'm back on what they call QI and CR, which stands for Quality Improvement and Credentialing Committee. I'm also on Program and Finance Committee. I'm also on the Executive Board as Secretary. And then we have our regular board meeting every month that everybody goes to. So I've got 2 committees and the Executive Board and the regular board meeting that I keep track of every month and do my best with there. Nancy Hastings had a good article that she wrote that got on the front page of the Hillsdale paper, and I think it might have been last Friday. It was either it might have been Thursday or Friday. It was on the front page down on the lower left, and it went to the second page, and quite a lengthy article filling space there about stress during COVID-19. And she interviewed me and Pastor Lori, and I think she also interviewed Mary Beth from Lifeways on that. Lifeways has been running some good ads in the paper with a phone number for mental health. If you're in crisis and need help, there's a number you can call, and they're providing good services, especially during this time of COVID-19. Other than that, this month, I think that there are going to be a Michigan State Advisory Council meeting next Tuesday, the 19th. We haven't had a meeting since this past winter, so I'm kind of looking out for that and get caught up with Michigan State Extension Advisory Council. The Human Services Network has been meeting regularly ever since COVID-19 started. They meet on Zoom every month. So there hasn't been any skip in that at all. So unless there's any questions, that's my report.
Any questions for Ruth? Okay, that brings us up to you now.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've had a slightly busy couple of weeks, and so I had the meeting with the medical examiner investigation. Let me start with that. And that was held virtually, and we had some discussion about how they're doing and what they're doing. They reported, and you must have already seen the package that was sent to all of you a couple of weeks back in regards with how and how many deaths they had. And they had 4 deaths last month, which was in April. And out of the 24 deaths, they performed 8 autopsies. And the calls they received from the medical care facility, none of those were performed for autopsy. So Dr. Casson has made it very clear that any calls that they've been receiving from the medical care facility, they received 13 calls, but none of the 13 calls they were in any way, shape, or form addressed to. The medical examiner did not come investigate, and they're not going to any of the COVID-19 scenes, just so you know. Now, the 8 autopsies that was conducted, out of that 4 were natural deaths, 3 were accidental, motor related, and 1 was suicide of a 16-year-old. So those were only 8 autopsies that were conducted. Autopsies and anything to do with the COVID infection, they're treating these cases with the COVID-19. Like I said, they're not going to the scenes. They're just handling the calls. If the calls are coming from the medical care facility with the calls with COVID-19, they do not go to the body. It's not their jurisdiction. So they mentioned that. So another thing is they are following all the CDC guidelines. A couple of my questions were as to what new gears that they were wearing and how they were provided, and were they provided every time they went for any autopsies or any investigation, whether it's a suicide or accident. And they said yes, they were wearing masks, face shield, shoe boots, covering for the shoes. That's what they're doing. And couple of those important things they're taking care of. Everything they're following with the CDC guidelines. Going on to the activity report for the Sheriff Department. You already saw the report that was sent to you just 6 days back. And if you see in the activity report for the Sheriff Department, due to COVID-19, the department was down to 93 inmate bookings into the jail. And they saw about 3,000 less meals than March 2020. So that's just some information for you to see. And if you had any questions in regards with that, please feel free to ask. As you do see, we had law enforcement calls for service, 284 calls for emergency, non-emergencies were 242, totaled 520. Yesterday, I had attended the Pittsford Township meeting. They had a regular meeting. They have been having regular meetings every month. They just spread about and they sit 6 feet apart. They don't have much public coming, but they do wear masks. And their regular meeting that was held yesterday, they had some questions. With some of them did receive information on the COVID-19 preparedness response plan that we have it today in our agenda and our consent agenda today. They shared a lot of thoughts about their townships as to how they want to see look concerns. So some of that was shared. They talked a little bit about it as well. Most of the items that they're having on their regular meeting, they have either tabled it, or the most important resolutions they've just had. A couple of information as it relates with they're still going to see their township open up for some more plans during June and July. with any of the proposed meetings they've had. And those were a couple of details they addressed. So today, there is another meeting of my township, which is Wheatland Township. They're also conducting regular meetings of CDC protocols, as in 6 feet apart, and they wear masks, and they are conducting it in person with less public. So those were a couple of meetings I attended. Also, I did attend some webinars, which was really educating. And a couple of those were another meeting that's coming up, which is the follow-up of the COVID-19 national briefing, which some of you do attend with the state local will be conducted in a couple days. I have the dates here on the 13th. So those of you who would like to attend the webinar, which is at 1 o'clock, and a couple of things will be discussed again. It's a national COVID-19 briefing call, and we'll have some senior administration officials from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the U.S. Department of Commerce. And so if there are any questionnaires that you may have, that you could send them via email. And the briefing call registration is up right now. And if you would like to register, the local officials can register by email by today. That's all I have for today, unless you have any questions for me in regards with the medical examiner or any other township meetings that please feel free to ask me.
This is Julie. I just wanted to clarify that the medical examiner is not doing the COVID-19 autopsies, because those are already determined by the attending physician, correct? So not necessary.
That is correct.
Okay.
Games. And to reiterate that, like I said, I gave you the number, the exact number as I got from the board meeting the other day was 13. They're addressing only telephonically if they have any questions, but any calls that are coming in regards to the COVID-19 deaths, they are declaring signing off with the doctor concerned, medical care facility staff concerned. They're signing off as is. The autopsies are not conducted, and it clearly has been indicated that the medical examiner investigation, it is not in their jurisdiction. So therefore, they'll address any calls or attend the conferencing with the medical care facility. However, they will not be doing any autopsies on the bodies. And the funeral homes who have taken, that is their jurisdiction, transporting bodies, they're just simply going ahead with either the cremation or burial as soon as possible with less members of the funeral relatives present. So these cases are conducted just as if it was like the Ebola cases. The MEI do not go to the body, it's just not their jurisdiction. So, and another thing to bring light about that, since this question was asked, is to, you remember the question that was asked by the board members a couple of meetings back at the regular meeting, if the decomposed bodies were going to be accepted at our new facility in Jackson County. And the answer is yes, because that was a major concern. And I had been pressing upon Dr. Cassin's office, because this is what we've been provided with. It is not our jurisdiction to pursue what happen to have decomposed bodies in Hillsdale County. And make no mistake, we will. And if we do, then what? And this has been clarified now. The Jackson Morgue will be accepting decomposed bodies and will not be having any problems as it relates with that, because before it was mentioned to us that they would have to transfer it elsewhere. And I didn't want to be in limbo. So those couple of things were concrete, and those answers we received. June 10th, they will be having a mock-up run, because August 1st, if you do recall, they're going to completely their morgue department to Jackson. And they're on fine with that. They're working with the same pattern, and they're okay. They're doing all right with that. So that seems to be the target, the time frame.
Thank you.
You will.
Any other questions for Namo? Hearing none, that brings us up to you, Julie.
Thank you. Is Randy Finley present?
Yes, he is.
I'd like to defer to Randy to talk about the bids for the HVAC system for the courthouse.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this so you can see him. There we go.
We invited a number of architects in to look at the courthouse. We had a total of 5 bids. Those 5 bids narrowed it down to basically 2 bids. I'm looking at possibilities of JDI Engineering and also Daily Engineering. I sent these to Marty Taylor to get a second opinion, and he's of the same opinion. He's saying Daily also, and possibly the JDI. The reason I say JDI is they have quite a staff. They actually had 4 people come into the building, engineer, HVAC engineer, project manager, and equipment personnel, and to look through it. So they have plenty of resources to go ahead and do this type of project. The other one, Daily Engineering, you're going to notice in that bid is pretty sketchy. And there's a reason for that. To be fair to Daily Engineering, Todd, that I didn't give him much time. I had to have this ready to send you out the packets. So he had less than 48 hours to look at it, prepare, that sort of thing. So this one's a lot more sketchy. The bids, some of them I asked to give me a total project, what they think it would cost. I had 2 of them that up in the 1.6 to 1.8 bracket. And that's not surprising. They deliberately go pretty high because they really don't know what equipment we're going to go with. You know, there's a lot of variables. So they went pretty high on that. On the flip side of it, Daily Engineering, they went pretty low, 400 to 500,000. And I don't think it can be done for that. It'd be wonderful if it could, but I don't see that. I'm still saying it's going to be in the $800,000 range, 7 to 8, somewhere in that neighborhood there. With all that said, I would refer it to you folks. I would say either JDI or Daily Engineering. Now, Daily Engineering actually did the engineering on the cob here and the HVAC here. He doesn't do it himself. He has Burke, gentleman Burke, come in, and he's an HVAC engineer, and I've worked with him, and I've worked with Todd. Todd's actually helping us out a little bit on the courthouse as far as the beam and the new courtroom, that sort of thing. So we have a pretty good working relationship with Daily Engineering. So those would be the 2 that I would recommend, and I would lean heavy toward Daily.
Does anybody have any questions for Randy regarding the bids? We did ask him to go out and obtain these bids and then to assist us in the hiring of a contractor or engineer.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ruth.
I'm looking at the one from Daily, and it says the new HVAC will be a VRF type system. Is that, can you explain that a little bit? I don't know what that means. Is that the same type system as what we have in the Cobb building, or is that not appropriate
Correct. It's the same type of system we have here in the Cobb and at the youth home. VRF stands for Variable Refrigerant Flow System. So that's what VRF actually stands for. And we have 2 of those systems already here in the Cobb and at the youth home also. They're different brands, different makes of systems. They run a little bit differently, but they're using the same technology. So that's what we're looking at. Yes.
What is in the courthouse right now? The boiler system?
It is a boiler chiller system that has water heat pumps. It's what we do right now is in the wintertime, we heat the water up to a certain degree and then send it to the heat pumps. The heat pumps take the heat out of the water and put it in the room. In the summertime, we take the heat out of the room and put it into the water, and it goes out to the cooling tower, gets cooled down, and then sprung back in and recycled. So we have heat pumps in the courthouse now. And what a VRF system is a heat pump system also. It's just a lot more efficient than what the boiler system is.
Okay. What about a warranty when something goes wrong with it after it's all done, if we start having problems with it or anything like that? Where's that? What kind of a warranty comes with this?
All these systems will tell you 10 years. My experience is it's a year. The way they do this, and all these companies do the exact same thing, even here in the Cobb, they'll cover everything up to a year. Then after that, it is, they'll cover the part, but they won't cover the labor. So when I have somebody come in to do warranty work, it's actually cheaper for us just to go do it ourselves and buy the part and install it ourselves, as opposed to having warranty work done. So with that said, yeah, there's a 10-year warranty, but is it really the type of warranty you're used to hearing? No, it's not. You can expect a year total part and labor warranty, and after that, it's kind of on us, half and half.
Okay. Very good, Randy. At some point during this conversation, I would like to ask Bruce, please, to explain a little bit how we're going to pay for this and how the payments are going to work over what length of time and so forth, please.
I have a question, Mark.
Go ahead.
We have a bid here from a local architect, Mendy. Why, and her bid was, if I read it correctly, was as cheap as Daly's. Why is she not being considered?
That's easy. First of all, it was an impromptu meeting. She came in, talked to me 10 minutes in the lobby and left. She never looked at the building. The rest of them took an hour and a half to go through the building and see what type of construction that we're doing and that sort of thing. The other thing, if you notice in her bid, the very first paragraph, she spends an entire paragraph accurately telling us, why, the particular system is the way it is. And she's 100% right, except we did that over 10 years ago. That was a decade ago. We corrected all those issues. She wouldn't know that because she never walked through the building. She has no idea what we have in the building. That's the reason I'm not even recommending her.
Okay, Ruth, in answer to your question, Ruth, about the financing. Originally, when we talked about this earlier, memory serves me correctly, I think I'm right here, we were talking that this project was going to be about $600,000. And the amount of money, extra money that the county will be taking in through this windmill project out here by me, assuming it's done by the end of the year, I estimated it would be approximately $500,000 that we'd take in. Now, I asked Nick Wheeler to go down to Marty and get all the particulars as far as how many windmills, the cost of them, the power station that they're putting up just north of me here, what that's going to cost, and so on. He went down and talked to Marty, and Marty didn't yet, at that point in time, have all this information. Marty indicated he'd get it to him as soon as he knows, so that we're getting an accurate number in terms of the amount of money, tax money, that will be taken in off this project. The original idea was to take approximately 300,000 of that money the first year, and each year that money will go down. The amount of money we get from it will go down for 5 years, and then it'll stay steady after that. But the idea was to take 300,000 the first year and pay off half of the debt, and then 200,000 the next year and 100,000 the third year. So the bonds that we would be selling would be over a 3-year period. Okay. Now that was based on 600,000, and that was based on taking in about $500,000 of tax money. Now at this point, we don't know how much tax money we're going to get. Nick hasn't been able to confirm numbers for us. We also apparently don't know how much this project's going to cost us. So when we're moving ahead today, we're simply allowing an architect to get hired, and that architect can be paid for out of, I know we'll have at least 30,000, which I think is what Daley proposed. We'll have at least $30,000 of extra tax money coming in that we can pay them off. And with the bids, we can find out what kind of actual money we're talking about that this is going to cost. By that time, my hope is that we'll have the information down in Marty's office for what's going to be built and the value and all that. And Nick will be able to give us a pretty good idea of how much money we're going to be taking in that first year. Then when we go to sell the bonds, we can make up our own minds as far as how we want to pay it off. I would urge us to pay it off as quickly as possible with that tax money, that extra money that's coming in, so that it's off the books and taken care of. A 3-year period seems reasonable, but if the cost is going to be $1.3 million, or it's going to be 900, or it's going to be 800, whatever, we need to know that before we can talk intelligently about how we're going to sell the bonds. But if the price comes in too high, we can always just say, no, we're not going to do it, and end it right there and not go forward with it as well. So that's what I can tell you right now in terms of the financing of this thing. And we had to do all this, Ruth, we had to do all this, get an architect and move ahead and get bids so that we know exactly what we're talking about for costs. And by that time, we should know exactly what we're talking about for increased tax revenue because of this windmill project.
Thanks, Bruce. Are there any other questions for Randy?
Yes, I have a question for Randy. Randy, this is Nemo. My question was, during the site plan that's being indicated, will there be any kind of sidewalk replacement work as well while they do all that? And if yes, then will it be a part of the cost that's already there, or will it be something out of the costs that were initiated for this?
She asked.
Sidewalk?
Oh, the only sidewalk is we're going to rip up where I want to put the equipment right now. The outdoor equipment is where the cooling tower is now. It's already, the pad's already there, the power's already there, it's already fenced in. So I would use that, and we would tunnel under or break up the sidewalk and go into the boardroom, into the courthouse. And it's just a matter of a large enough pipe to handle all the plumbing that comes from those units in. And then we would repair the sidewalk and go on.
Is it a lot of anticipated work, or is it just very minimal we're talking about for the concrete
It's
sidewalk?
minimal. It's really not that big of a deal.
for another bid, like I just read, are we waiting on another bid? Or are these,
all
all
the
three?
bids
Are these the
are
only
in,
ones?
all 5 of them, yes.
Okay.
And Commissioner Kingsmill is 100% right. We won't know what the total project will cost until the architect's done and we send this out to bid and we find out who's getting the bid. Then we'll know what the total price is. And this project will not be done until probably spring of next year. We're in a lag right now with construction and everybody's tied up. So, and we have a small window to hit because I do not want to take the heating system down when we still are cold enough it's going to make a difference. So I only have 2 windows. I have a window in the fall and a window in the spring to hit. And so right at this point, it'd be next spring.
Have to lock contract. I know we're going to begin next spring in 2021, but do they have a time frame that you have to take in that bid and lock that bid so that we don't have an increase in price or, however?
Yeah, when we send it out to bid and everything, we'll get back the bids, we'll open the bids, and we will decide on who we're going to go with. At that point in time, it'll be part of the bid process. They'll know that, we want the project done by summer next year. So they'll be starting in the spring. If we decide that we don't like any of the bids, we just say no, thank you, and that's the end of it.
Right. Sounds good, Randy. Thanks for answering.
Any other questions or comments? I believe at this time it'd be appropriate to have a motion.
Yes, I was,
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
okay, so I would like to make a motion that we allow Randy to hire the Daily Group for the architect for the HVAC system.
I support that.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Gaines,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Haswell. Commissioner Cantwell,
Here he is, not muted. There's all kinds of background noise.
we're doing a roll call vote on a motion to hire Daily for the HVAC system. I'm asking for your yea or nay.
Bruce, can you hear us all right?
No, Ken, yes.
Okay. Yeah, somebody wasn't muted, but anyways, the motion was made to hire Dally. Julie made the motion, Namu supported, and we're in the process of a roll call vote. And Jody needs your yay or nay on that.
Okay, yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Carolyn,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes.
Motion passes. Randy will get to work on proceeding with Dally on that project. So, did you have anything else for Randy, Julie?
No, I don't think so unless Randy has any other updates he would like to inform the board about.
The only other update I have is we're taking out a tree on the courthouse property. One of the big maples is coming out. So that will be coming out next week. It went dead and now it's become a safety hazard. So I'm having that tree taken out. I hate seeing one of those big trees go, but it's one of those deals where it's got to. That is an update there. The other update is on the sneeze shields or the glass that's going onto the counters of all the departments. The bid that came back in from Mercer was exceptionally high and Marty and I said no to it. They were talking in $60,000 range, and we said no. So we had G&G Glass come in yesterday, and Paul came in and measured it up. He's getting us an estimate right now, and then Mercer is coming back with another one, just so we have another one to go by. But they are going to sharpen their pencil and see if they can get a lot closer. So that's the update. We should have something by the end of this week and be able to move on it.
Thank you.
Mark?
Randy, I didn't hear something about a tree coming down and then it started to cut out. Where's this tree at you're going to take down?
It's on the northeast corner of the courthouse grounds. Okay, it's over there by the stoplight, over there by where the big power boxes are, over in that area. So it's dead at the base, and we have to take it out before it topples into the street. So we have to get around and get it taken out. And there's a second one, looks like it's dying right there next to the fountain. I'll probably have to do that before the end of the summer, but one at a time right now. So it's unfortunate. We may decide to plant a tree back into that spot and everything. And so maybe in 20, 30 years, somebody else can enjoy that shade. But unfortunately, that big tree has to come down.
Take that tree down. Is the street going to have to be blocked off so there's no cars going through?
No. Their sidewalks will be blocked off and that sort of thing, but no, shouldn't have any street blocked off like that. They'll come in with a high rise and they'll piece it out as much as they can.
Okay, thank you, Randy.
Yep.
Can I say something about this?
And Randy,
Just a minute. Bruce, go ahead.
Well, Marty Taylor is over there distributing some stuff I'm going to talk about a little bit later to all the offices. And Marty Taylor saw me and he asked me if his department could pay for all of the shields that are going to be put up in the various and sundry offices that Randy just mentioned. And I told him he could go ahead and do that and pay for that. Now I'm assuming that we will be able to be reimbursed through the COVID money, the CARES Act, FEMA, and all of that. And when that, I just want to point out to all the commissioners that when that money comes back to us, that money needs to be reimbursed and paid back to Marty's department. It would be helpful for cash flow purposes if he could pay for it to get it put in place. But then when the money comes back, it needs to go back into his department.
Yeah, we'll just see what year we get that money in, Bruce.
Well,
We will file for it,
I
or at least attempt to.
I understand, Mr. I get that. Because of all the uncertainty, Marty's department is better able to handle than the general fund. But I just want to point out that when it does come back, and I would suspect we'll get it, when it does come back, it needs to be reimbursed to his department.
Point taken. Any other comments for Randy at this time?
I just have a comment for Randy.
Yes, ma'am.
My comment is, Randy, during all of this time, phenomenal job. You've been on track, on time, and you're on dot every day, seems like, on it. And I really want to comment the fact that you have been so due diligent about so many factors, because there's so much to deal with it, so much to get into the minutiae and the weeds of it. And it simply clarifies to the taxpayers that, we're on it. And obviously with all the circumstances that we are, going through, you have been on top of it, so diligent. So thank you for preparing this. Thank you for getting on top of all of these contracts. And especially I want to thank those contractors who came and took time to walk through the building, because certainly we want to be able to look at the bid and also the contractors who are taking time to look at the infrastructure of what we have, not just be so spontaneous to just give us a bill in the hand and a contract and we go with it. So they took time to walk through the vicinity building. So it really is an effort. So thanks for being on top of that. And I really appreciate the work. So thank you. I look forward to the completion of this, really.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Randy. All right. Julie, you may continue, please.
Thank you. As Ruth stated in her report, she and I did the interviews for the two candidates that we had for the Lifeways board position. We interviewed Brad Boner, who is currently serving in that position and asked to be reappointed. And we also interviewed a new candidate, Carlin Malone, who was also a good candidate. But given the requirements of the board, looking for experience and background in mental health, we are going to recommend to the board that we reappoint Brad Boner to this position. Did you have any other comments, Ruth, or are there any questions about the recommendation?
Well, I thought that the process of doing these interviews was excellent, and I frankly think that we should start doing interviews like this for all of our board appointments because, you know, it just is doing our due diligence and giving accountability on both sides. I just thought the process was very good. We spent about an hour with each candidate. As soon as the interviews were over with, I took notes and I went straight over to the courthouse and Jody sent everything out to the commissioners. So you guys had it within an hour after we were done last Monday. And it was good that we did it on Monday because Julie and I both had time to ponder and to think about it and so on and so forth. And we weren't rushed like we are on a lot of stuff sometimes. And I just feel like they both gave strong interviews and they both have good backgrounds. But when you look at the Lifeways board and what's needed on the Lifeways board, Brad's background and qualifications as far as the degrees that he holds and the experience that he's had in his background makes him the more qualified candidate for that board. Does anybody have any questions?
Anyone have any comments for either Ruth or Julie on their recommendation?
I do.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I just want to comment on the fact that, you know, it was, I think, a great process that we can put in place. And this really gives me such a great encouragement that we have some really good candidates and they were interviewed. And I think I'd like to really comment on the fact that both Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Gaines took that responsibility of interviewing both the candidates. And, you know, I just have such great regards for Lifeways. And I want to comment on the fact because I think the Lifeway has been a great service and it's been providing the phenomenal services around in our area, the Jackson area, several other counties. And just to have the candidate and the candidates take that interest and to be a part of it. And I think it must have been a very hard process, but I think it's a great recommendation. And I want to thank both of the commissioners for taking this time and coming back with Mr. Boner. I don't know him by face, but I do know him with all the work that he has provided Lifeways. And I think Lifeways has had a great impact on the community, and what he has on the table to bring back to the community is phenomenal. And I think both the candidates showed some really great interest, and I think it's just such a blessing to have the kind of people to take that interest, to put in all the hard work and continue to do the hard work. And Lifeways, again, has been a very visible committee, visible foundation in our community. And so really it takes such a great effort to be a part of that. It's such a lot of education at the same time, and the work really must go on. So I want to congratulate both of those candidates, but Brad for getting back on this and serving with all the great qualifications that he has, and for more to come. And I believe with all his experiences, Lifeways will carry on to do even more better and serve the community. I really want to thank Mary Beth, our CEO, as well. What a tremendous work she does. And so it really is a great benefit for our counties, Illinois, for the Jackson, and for the Hillsdale. So we are truly very grateful for this. It's really amazing. So I want to thank you for that, for taking this responsibility for getting good candidates in place. So thanks.
Okay. Julie or Ruth?
So can I make a motion at this point that we would appoint Brad Boner to the Lifeways Board?
That is acceptable.
Ruth,
Ruth, you seconded?
Yes.
Thank you.
yes,
Further discussion?
Mark?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank Ruth and Julie for doing the interviews. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
I
Bruce.
I as well would like to thank them, and I do agree, by appointing a subcommittee to do interviews, I think we become a little more transparent and a little more open in the process. So thank you. So is there any further discussion on the motion at hand? Hearing none, roll call.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Caswell,
No.
Commissioner Carolyn, Commissioner Brown,
yes.
Commissioner Gaines.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. Please continue.
Other things I would just like to update everybody on. I went to the farmer's market on Saturday. It was the opening day. The farmer's market is in the courthouse parking lot every Saturday from 1 p.m. And early on like this, it's not full of vendors, but we do have a full list of vendors for this year. And everything went really well. They took precautions to be socially distanced. Most people had masks or scarves or bandanas of some sort. And it went really well, and it was a great day, and just hope to see more people out there in the coming weeks. Next weekend should be a lot warmer. It was a very cold Saturday at the farmer's market and windy. So this weekend it should be 70. It might be raining though, so bring your rain bonnet along with your face mask. I did also attend the Litchfield Township had an in-person meeting last night that was socially distanced. Scipio Township had a conference call that I also attended, and Fayette Township decided not to have a meeting last night, and hopefully we'll have an in-person meeting in June. So our townships are proceeding to meet and do business as needed. Also, I want to note that both the county website and the county mapping and taxation site, the GIS, they're both being updated as we speak. And we would appreciate feedback from employees and citizens as to what you're seeing, what you like, what you don't like. And please contact one of your commissioners about that. Also, Marty notified me that the inspection department is back to regular hours now. So if there are people needing permits and so forth, they are there. If they don't get to your phone call, please leave a message and they will get back to you. You can also contact them by email. And last but not least, I did attend the road commission meeting, and we're going to have further discussion on our own preparedness plan. But they have put in a preparedness plan recommended by their risk management company. They're supplying PPE and signs, sanitizer. They're using social distancing protocols. They are questioning their employees when they come to work, and visitors as well. Also, if you're sick, they will tell you to stay home because they don't want other people, obviously in their department, to become sick. And so that might be just some tips for us for further discussion later. That concludes my report unless there are any questions.
Yes, Commissioner Gaines, I have a question for you. In regards to the inspection department, you said they're doing full-time, they're available full-time, which means the normal hours?
Yes, they're back to regular hours.
Okay. Right, this is for, to provide permits, so the inspection department will remain and their hours are going to be the same? And not.
Yes. Yep. No,
Okay.
not now. I mean, they
Thanks.
were unlimited availability and now they're back to regular hours. I just wanted to make that announcement.
Thank you. And the other question I had was the farmers market, that is, they are meeting at the same place, correct? On Saturdays, same time frame, same
Parking
hours?
lot. Yep, 9 to 1 at the courthouse parking lot. They're about 40% full right now. A lot of the vendors don't have items that are essential, maybe we'll say, and also they're, there's more produce and different things as the season progresses. So, but there was a very good assortment of produce, eggs, baked goods, a lot of good food there. So.
I'm really happy to see that that's all in the good time frame. And so it's really nice to have them back on the Saturdays.
We like to support farmers. So, there's also great, local meat sources available there. I bought some beef and some pork at the farmer's market. It tastes fantastic. So if you have a chance, please come out on Saturdays from 9 to 1 through October.
Sure, thank you so much. And I will be spreading the word in my townships.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else for Julie? Thank you for that, Julie. And yes, the governor opened up for the most part construction and stuff. So Marty and I have talked as well. And, he was actually trying to gear up for that about a week ago. And now they're pretty much full swing. So we can start getting at least that portion of the local economy going again. So, and good luck to all those construction guys as far as trying to catch up.
Yes.
Good luck, right? So, okay, that brings us up to Bruce.
Resolution 20042 to the Honorable Board of Commissioners. We authorize the Chairman of the Board of Commissioners, Mark E. Wiley, to sign the consulting services agreement between the County of Hillsdale and MGT of America Consulting, LLC, 2343 Delta Road, Bay City, Michigan, 48706, to provide professional consulting services for the preparation of the 2019 and 2020 cost allocation plan. Further, the county agrees to pay MGT of America Consulting, LLC, a sum not to exceed $9,000 year's plan reimbursement for expenses incurred. Respectfully submitted, Bruce Basil. I move for adoption of the resolution.
Support. This is Ruth.
Okay, MGT is a company that does our cost allocation plan here county, and this is for purposes of getting reimbursement from the state for various and sundry activities that different departments do. Most of it is centered in the prosecutor's office and the courts. And we are able to allocate a percentage of our costs to the state, and we can get reimbursed as long as we do everything properly, which none of us, quite frankly, in the county would be able to do well. And this company does it and does it very well. And we get a lot of money back through reimbursements from the state for various activities that we're required to perform by the state. They're not raising their price. This is for 19 and 20. And the way MGT has always done this is that they'll have us sign the contract for the previous year, 19, and then for 20, the year we're in right now. They do it in a 2-year frame like that, and they're always a year behind. So this is, I believe, $9,000 each year. So it would be an $18,000 bill total. So that's what I can tell you about it.
Derek was on. Derek, are you still with us? Derek must have left. I was going to have him add in comments. He's the one.
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. Go ahead, Derek.
I just, everything Bruce said is correct. This is an extension of the last contract we did with them. We had a clause in the last contract that allowed us to do an extension.
Related to the protocol and the order that is in effect right now.
So yeah, that's it.
I actually talked to Ruth when because Ruth has talked to me about it several times. She emailed me while she and Julie were meeting, asking me.
Somebody's not muted.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for either Bruce or Derek on the MGT resolution?
Yes, I have a question for Bruce.
Go ahead.
Like you said, and the resolution states that they're 1 year behind. So do they do on a yearly basis? Because I know you said it won't exceed the cost for more than $9,000. So you think so the cost would increase in 2021 or 2022?
Who knows? All I can tell you is the contract that we're dealing with today is the same price as we had before. It's $9,000 a year. Price did not go up.
All right, good. So we're probably going to expect that in 2021 as well, right?
No, I don't know if they'll keep the price the same or if they'll raise it. I don't know.
Okay, well, thanks.
Can I add something?
Go ahead, Derek.
It's been $9,000 for quite a few years. I mean, at least 5 years. They haven't changed the price in all that time. So I don't necessarily expect it to go up, but they might renegotiate. It'll be up to them.
And Derek, it is possible that we won't see this again until 2022, correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Because they always do kind of a year in the rears and do the present year. So this takes us on through 20.
Right.
Okay. Anything else on the resolution 20-042? All right, roll call.
Commissioner Caswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Carolyn,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaines,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley.
Yes. Resolution passes 5-0. Please continue with your report, Bruce.
Okay, I got a bill today. Last fall, you may or may not remember, we gave the Parks Commission authorization to put a new roof on the house out at Lewis Emery Park. And we got a bill through on that of $6,600. I sent that on to Derek, so that'll get paid. Second thing is I sent you all a copy of Kim Berger's quarterly report. This is for the second quarter of the Indigent Defense Commission. And just a couple things I wanted to point out in the report is that in both district and circuit court, there was never a citizen who appeared before them, but what they had an attorney present with them at their arraignment, which is the first time they appear in court. So that's an excellent job on the part of the Indigent Defense Commission, Kim, getting people there and having representation for them right off the bat. The other point that I wanted to make is that in the part where it talks about the attorney caseload, Kim indicates that she is getting 40% of the cases, Rod Dunham is getting 40%, and Keith Stickley is getting 20%. And if you look at just this quarter, you will see that they're all getting right in the neighborhood of around 33%, give or take a few percentage points in each direction. And I asked her about that, and she indicated that for her, she's had 5 capital cases, 2 of them are pending, and these types of cases take a lot more time and a lot more effort, and she has to take them because some of the others don't have the experience to take them, apparently. The other point is this is only a quarter, and the way the cases fell and who was available and so on, Keith, who's only supposed to get 20% of the cases, took a lot more this quarter. But that will even out in the future, and by the end of the year, he will have in the neighborhood of 20% of the cases, and the other 2 will be 40%. So the number of cases is influenced by the type of case, whether it's a capital case or not, and also by the time of the year that you're actually putting it in place. And also by the time that you're getting the cases. You may get more in one quarter, but fewer in another quarter. The final thing I wanted to mention is that the Hillsdale County Maintenance Department has been turning an outdated bathroom and closet into a conference room for circuit court. That's for circuit court. Construction is about complete, but it can be utilized at this time for meeting with clients, and that was a big issue. So I want to thank the maintenance department for getting that done. It's not completely done, but at least it's usable now. So attorneys can take their clients in there and have a private conversation with them. The next thing I want to mention is that seems like an eternity ago, but I attended a conference and I came back and I talked to you about capital projects and what I was taught at this conference and so on. And I've delivered to all of the departments a cover letter along with a copy of the capital sheet. And I've asked everyone to put in place using a separate sheet for each project, this 5 years, what they would like to see done in their departments. And it could be anything from placing carpet to remodeling heating systems to putting on new roofs. It's all capital projects. And this was an outgrowth, Chairman Wiley, years ago when we had our meetings with all the department heads and elected officials. And the purpose of this project, what I'm doing is to get everything specifically year by year for the next 5 years. And I explained that to them. I'd like this done this year, this done next year, and so on. And it also requires them to sit down and talk about any costs by doing a project, any cost savings to the county and the general fund, maybe less maintenance costs if we fix this up, so that we can both see expenses and savings as we move through this. I ask them to get all this information back if they have any projects that they want to be considered, to get it back by the end of July. And then it will become part of the budget process with Ruth and myself. If we're able to set aside any monies for capital projects for next year, we'll look through these projects, see what can be done, what can't be done, and make that decision and present it to the board as part of the budget that we vote on in December. So it's trying to get a little bit more organization around what Mark got started before. And this is something that needs to be done each year, just to go back to people so that it'll be a rolling 5 years. So year 1's out of the way, add in year 6, year 2's out of the way, add in year 7, and so on. So there's a constant upgrading of the capital projects that need to be done. And each of the department heads and elected officials will be responsible for making their particular department or area of expertise, putting it down on paper and showing all of the costs and expenses and so on for these various projects. So that's been done.
Can I ask a question about that while you're on that, Bruce, please? You did a good job, and I'm very glad you did all that, and that's helping the county and everybody involved, and I appreciate that you did that. I'm just curious, when you came back from that meeting in Ann Arbor, you gave us a bunch of papers and stuff, and they said it should be a 6-year plan, and maybe that was a suggestion, but anyways, you are doing 5 years. I'm just curious on how you come up with 5 years, or if it matters, or so forth.
I don't really think it matters, Ruth. If you want, if the commissioner said they wanted to extend it out to 6 years, you could do it. I felt like 5 years was a whole lot longer than we're planning these things out now, and it was an appropriate place to start.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. I set in a couple more webinars and got a little bit more detailed information. The state has about a $1.2 billion surplus in its rainy day fund, which I might add is entirely due to ex-Governor Snyder. Hadn't been for him, we wouldn't have anything in the cupboard. The state is going to be short this year in just the general fund. They're anticipating the state is going to be short about $1.2 billion. Now, that means that the legislature could take everything out of the rainy day fund, everything, and we wouldn't have to make any cuts this year in the general fund. That's not going to happen, I don't believe. So the issue for the legislature is going to be how much of the rainy day fund to use to help tide over things this year, and how much of that rainy day fund to use next year. Now, it's looking like the deficit for next year, and everybody is kind of still up in the air on all this, but it looks like the deficit for the general fund next year is going to be about 1.3 or 1.4 billion. So what that means for us as a county, we are not dependent on the sales tax for revenue sharing, as I've said to you in the past. We are dependent on an allocation from the state government. And that allocation was written into the budget for this year. Now, they are looking, this 1.2 billion is approximately, it's between 10 and 15% of the general fund budget. If the legislature and the governor make the decision to simply cut every department by 15%, then our revenue sharing that we get from the state will be cut by 15%. Now, I would remind you that because we're halfway through the year, that 15% cut on the remaining payments that we get from the state will actually be 30% cuts, because it's going to be 15 for the whole year. So they're going to have to double it up these last few payments that we get. Nobody knows where it's going to be at, but Derek, when he prepared for us his financial expectations for loss of revenue, he indicated a 10% cut in revenue sharing. That might be a tad bit low. And if you remember, that 10% was about $100,000. We might want to be looking at about 15%, which would be 150,000. The other piece of this, looking ahead another year, is that if we do have the deficit they're talking about for next year, then we're going to be looking at another chop of 150,000 next year as well. So it could be a 2-year hit while the economy is getting back on its legs again. Nobody really knows. The so-called experts have never had anything like this happen in the past. We've never had a recession caused because everything just gets shut down. Nobody knows how fast the economy is going to come back. Nobody has any idea. It's all guesswork. But we need to be very prudent as we move forward and not overspend, and be very conservative on our revenue estimates coming in. Now, the saving grace that we have is, as I said, we're going to be getting, because of this windmill project, a considerable chunk of money soil erosion permit fees, which does come to the general fund. And we're also going to be getting something from the windmill project in terms of personal property tax. Now, one thing that I did not take into consideration in the personal property tax, and that Derek and I finally got figured out, is that the state reimburses us for personal property. It comes from them. So that should make you gun shy right there. But the second thing is that our millage, if as our personal property tax goes up and we get more and more and more of it, the millage that the state allows us to claim is reduced back. So they kind of are protecting themselves, which is not surprising in terms of how much they have to pay out. And I'm not sure, and that's part of why I went to Nick Wheeler to talk to him. I'm not sure with this windmill project what it will do in terms of reducing the millage. We'll end up with and quite a bit more money, but it may not be the full amount. So I'll get that to you as soon as we can get it figured out. It's complicated, but as all complicated things are from Lansing, they will cover themselves first and everybody else can take care of themselves. That's how it always works. So I'm just warning you. We really need to be extremely detailed on everything and anything that's related to COVID, so that we can ask for reimbursement down the road. The state currently is getting about 1.3, it might be more than that, it might be about 3 billion from the federal government, but it can only be spent for COVID related activities. Okay, now, for example, apparently the state police, they're giving them a bunch more money. They also are giving more money to all of the healthcare workers that are in the homes for the mentally impaired and the physically impaired. They're giving more money to them as it's like $2 more an hour. All of that money, okay, can be used to, it can be reimbursed through this COVID money because it's dollars that are being spent to keep these folks from getting this disease. So we're going to have to be really careful as a county to allocate everything. And I'm talking time cards, bills, everything. We've got to have all the detail, because when it comes time to get reimbursed, if we don't have all the detail, they're not going to reimburse us. They've made that very plain through FEMA grants and so on and so forth. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that FEMA grants, they will reimburse us for 75% of our costs. We have to come up with 25%. It's looking more and more likely that we may also be able to get that 25% through another pot of money that the federal government's made available to cover our cost sharing. Again, that's up in the air, but it's a possibility. So that's what I can tell you that I know at this point from everything that's going on. The factories are starting to reopen, and next week the auto plants will go back up. The parts plants went up this week. And when all those get back up and are running again, that'll be about 320,000 people that will come off the unemployment rolls and go back to work. The hospitals are still not being allowed to do elective surgeries, no matter what their situation is, and that has to change. It's one of the greatest ironies of this whole thing that with all this disease that we're dealing with, that the hospitals are laying off doctors and nurses because they don't have the business anymore. So there's a lot of healthcare people that are no longer in the system because of these shutdown orders. And that just is kind of a head scratcher, to say the least. So with that, Mark, we talked about the pension situation. I think that's everything that I have. So any questions?
Bruce, did you and Derek have a chance to talk at all about the, I asked Derek to figure out what it would cost us to do like a COVID crisis pay for the people on the front line?
Derek, you were working on that. Have you got anything?
Yeah, so we got it pretty much hammered out just for the wages side of things. But there were a couple questions to make sure that time cards were being filled out correctly. I think there was some debate on whether people were filling out COVID hours if they came into the office or if they even worked from home. And I understand the hazard pay calculation is supposed to be for only if they came into the office to work. So Carol and I were kind of working on that, and we thought about touching base with each department head to make sure that when they identify that on the timesheet that they're referring strictly to the hours that they came into the office to work. And then once we get that part straightened out, we should be good. For the total county, it was somewhere around, our preliminary numbers was somewhere around $30,000 for $2 an hour worked for the 3 pay periods that we've had so far. Now, we just had another pay period this week, and we're working on getting that added to the spreadsheet. So once we get that added to the spreadsheet and once we confirm that these were actually hours that everyone came into the office or into the field to work, I'll have something more final.
Derek,
Yes.
does that $30,000 include retirement costs?
No,
Medical,
it's
FICA?
just wages. It's just wages as of right now. I will add all of that in once I get everything finalized, but that 30,000 is just wages.
Okay.
And that includes, you know, multiple funds. It's not just the general fund. That would be, you know, 911, some of the drug courts,
Drains?
youth home, drains, yep. And I'll have all of that separated out to show clearly where those costs are coming from.
Okay. Would that be something, Derek, you think we'll have a better handle on for the next meeting?
Yeah, I think by the end of the week, I'll have, you know, pretty much all done. I'm kind of just waiting on this pay period to finish up. And then I've already started touching base with a few department heads to make sure that their hours are strictly off, or hours that they came in to work.
Okay, well, I'll plan on you and Bruce bringing back a proposal then for the next meeting on this subject. So,
Okay.
okay, while we've,
Thing to keep in
go ahead.
I say the other thing to keep in mind is this is extended out now, I am assuming, until the end of the month. So there'll be another pay period tacked on there too that I won't have information for.
Correct. So whatever proposal you bring us would have to be flexible enough to, you know, account for that.
Right.
Yep, understand. While we've got you and Bruce both, you sent out your financial report. Is there anything that you or Bruce want to go over on that with the rest of us?
Derek, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I just sent the expenditure report to kind of show where we are throughout the year. And so far this year, we've spent 32.52% of our budget. So we're pretty much right on pace. Some of the departments appear to be tracking over budget. A lot of that is because there were 3 pays in April, as there's 26 pays in the year. So it doesn't really come out monthly. There were a few other areas that are just going to be over budget. The public defenders, there's going to be $3,000 over budget, but at the end of the year, I think there was some late negotiations with some of the public defenders that got they got slight increases after the budget was already set. So that'll amount to about $3,000. And then the other big area was the general insurance is tracking a little bit over budget. But we don't really know for sure because the rates get set in July for the next 2 payments, and it's paid biannually. So we don't know what the next rate for our insurance is going to be. We're hoping it doesn't go up, but there's some risk there. Everywhere else in our budget looks to be pretty much on track. And if you have any questions on anything that I sent, you can just let me know and I can answer those.
Commissioners, the workers' compensation, the year-to-date balance in April is $2,361, and we just got bills through. I signed them, I think, last week. Another $28,000 for medical bills for the deputy. So that's going to change quite a little bit. The other point to make out, commissioners, is that the sheriff's department, you can see, is considerably below budget, and the jails and corrections department is below budget. Those are 2 big items. And jails and corrections is below because, quite frankly, they're not feeding nearly as many meals and they're not having nearly as many medical costs out there because the number of prisoners is down. Derek, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The workman's comp is a little bit deceiving because we actually pay the bills out of our self-insurance fund. The general fund just allocates money to that fund as needed. So basically, we've only allocated $2,300 of the $333 that we've budgeted to that fund as of today. I can give you guys at the next meeting a breakdown of where we are as far as our self-insurance fund, how much cash we have in it, and how much specifically we spent on the major accident from last year, if you would like.
Now, there's some other things, commissioners, that you need to look at, and this is why it's hard in the middle of the year to know exactly where you're at. But if you look on the first page on expenses, MSU Cooperative Extension, we've made 2 payments, and that comes to 45% of the budget. So we're saying at this point we should be at 33%. Well, we've already made 2 payments, so it's at 50%. So we're going to have to spend another $83,000 there. So we won't be over budget at the end of the year. Okay, but it makes it look a little bit worse right now than what it really is. Now the other point, does anybody have any questions on the expenses for Derek?
Bruce, I just have a quick question, please.
Yeah.
In regards with the workers' comp, you kind of broke a little bit, so I was wondering, are we getting that out from the general fund?
What Derek explained is correct, but the line is, at the end of the day, everything's going to be transferred out of this workers' compensation line over to this other fund that actually pays the workers' comp. And eventually that 28,000 bill that we just got will show up here because we're going to have to transfer it. Okay. So Derek's correct what he's saying. It's just a matter that it'll show up here a little bit later on this particular sheet. But yeah, we allocated something in the neighborhood of, we were paying out about 70,000 a year in workers' comp. That was to just pick up the typical normal things that come up and pay for stuff. As you can see, this year, we raised that up to about 334,000, and that's because of what we were told by our workers' comp company that the costs of this deputy would be. So that's the reason you're seeing 334,000 allocated in that line. So 70 of that is normal. The other 260 or so is what the company told us we should anticipate we're going to have to pay for the medical expenses for the deputy this year.
Sure, thank you. And the other quick question to you, Bruce, is I know you mentioned about the anticipated monies coming from the windmill.
Yes.
My only concern over there is with the windmill project, I mean, are we looking at some kind of feedback if it will be a consistent plan from their end or not? Because I know I had been dealing. The fact is that we did hear a lot about the fact that the windmill project was stopped or not going as per the plan and all of that. Do you think we're going to endure some kind of a hindrance in that? Where we're anticipating monies, but what is the amount of monies we're anticipating?
Well, as I've said in the past, my best guesstimate was around 500,000 the first year, additional tax revenue for the county. And yes, the project's moving forward. I can tell you that Beth and I and Kevin have been eating dust out here for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, with trucks running up and down the road, getting the power generation site ready down at Reesers. It is moving ahead and they're pursuing it. Anybody there?
Yeah. So Bruce's comments are 100% correct on that, Namu, because the project was deemed essential. They got permission from the state early on, since they are a utility, and they've been full speed ahead pretty much throughout this whole time period. Any other questions or comments for Bruce?
One more thing, Mark, if I may. Derek, would you talk about the revenue estimates that you have here?
Yeah, so for the revenue, I just kind of did a simple year-to-date versus where we were at this point last year. And if you look at the first page of the sheet I sent, it shows, you know, what we budgeted in 19, which was last year, which was 12.4 million, what we budgeted this year, which was 12.6 million. And it shows, you know, where the increases are. One of the bigger increases is just tax revenue in general, just from inflation and new construction. But it also shows the two highlighted columns of what we had taken in at this point last year versus now. And the biggest change is taxes, and that's a little misconceiving. That's just a function of recording a journal entry. So at this point last year, we were a little bit ahead in getting some journal entries recorded, which makes sense because, you know, we haven't been fully staffed for over 2 months now. So I'm guessing that's the main reason for that. But the other ones are a little bit more telling, and it shows where we are now versus last year. And if you scroll down, there's a breakdown of each of them. So charges for services on the second page, you know, shows each specific line item that we receive money in for services last year versus this year. And then if you keep going, the same thing for fines and forfeits, interest, reimbursements, grants, all of that. So I guess I'm not going to go through each one, but if you have any questions or if Bruce wants to add anything, then go ahead. Anybody there?
Yeah. Lot of interesting work there, Derek. Is there any questions for Derek on that?
Just a comment for Derek and also a comment to Bruce. And my comment is that, you know, both of you have been like the doctor with a shrapnel. So that prudence and that immense help has truly helped. And I think that is the comment I want to give. Great work. I mean, I really do look forward to, you know, seeing us open up. And I know, like Bruce mentioned about the factories opening up, and then in the coming days, we have the workers who will be going back. And so things would start looking a little bit better. But I truly want to comment on the fact that this work has been nothing less than a doctor truly with a shrapnel working on the finances in detail. So this is really immense. You know, and a really quick one, I wanted to give a quick comment earlier, but was not able to. I want to comment on the fact the Hillsdale County Maintenance Department, and I think they have turned an outdated bathroom and a closet into a conference room for the circuit court, and I think that's phenomenal. I really like that, and a thank you for that. So I wanted to say thanks to Randy earlier, but you know, never late then. I'm glad that I could say this now. So I know the construction is about complete, but with the report, I think that we received from Derek, kind of mentioned a little bit, and so that this is really good. And I want to thank Kim Berger also for all the efforts that were taken. So that's it with my comments.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Derek. If you've got any questions or comments on Derek's spreadsheets there, feel free to email him. I'm confident he'll explain it further if you've got a question. So, all right. I've got one action item. That's the 20-041. To the Honorable Board of Commissioners, we, the Board of Commissioners, authorize Mark E. Wiley, Chairman, to sign the final copy of the County of Hillsdale COVID-19 Preparedness and Response Plan, respectfully submitted. And the full copy of that is in your packet, by the way, in the draft form, but do I have a support?
Support, Julie.
Thank you, Julie. As I think I indicated in an email, Doug will make the needed changes if there's any proposed changes today, and then he'll print a clean copy that doesn't say draft, and then I'll sign that as well. But Doug is online with us this morning. If there's any questions, he can answer them, or I will try. Does anyone have questions regarding this?
The one question that I have, or perhaps a comment, that RV, let me make it a comment. I think we need to be able to put a timeline on this, because I did not see a time frame on this. I know we're proposing this as a response plan, and it seems like this is mirroring the Michigan Executive Order 2020-42, which was dated April 9th. And it goes on and it says, and Michigan Executive Order 2020-59 dated April 24th, 2020. And so this is May 12th, and I would like to just ask if we are going to be putting a time frame on this, because we're proposing the plan. It's really nice to have a plan. And a lot of the townships, the feedbacks that I've been getting is good to have a plan, a response, and a preparedness plan for our county, because truly we need it. But then are we also looking for a time frame? And if we could put a time frame on this.
First of all, we don't know the time frame. That's one problem right now, because we don't know. This could extend. If we want to listen to some of the doctors, which I tend to listen to on some of the conversation, this could be with us through the fall. So it's pretty hard to put a timeline on it. But with that said, Doug, I'll yield to you if you want to make a comment to that question that NAMU has proposed.
The only thing I could suggest, and you are exactly correct, Mark, there is no time frame. Perhaps put some kind of a generic comment in the policy itself that says until such time as the Board of Commissioners determines this is no longer necessary. We could put another comment of some kind, but that would give you some closure and some then down the road authority to act. Obviously, you have the authority, but it would be stated in the document that it's in effect until you reverse it or suspend it.
I think I would agree with that, Doug, to mention about that, the suspension until some kind of not, if you don't want to put a time frame, that's fine. But then we also do want to be able to put this response plan in a way that we are not exactly mirroring with the executive orders that we have been receiving. So what bothers me is that, we're mentioning towards the end, but that certification towards that Appendix G, I think, Appendix G, where it says it complies with the Michigan Executive Order 2020-42, and then it also complies with the Michigan Executive Order 2020-59. So that is a concern with. It's okay to have a plan, like I earlier said, but being in compliance with the executive orders that probably will have us hinge back or take back if we're ready to even open up the local economy with proper protocols, keeping things essential and non-essential. So that I think it needs to be rephrased or even removed, the wording that says it complies with the executive order. So are we truly complying with the executive orders, or are we supposed to, because we don't have a time frame? So we can go on like this for a very long time, like you said.
If I may, Mark?
Yes, please, Doug, go ahead.
I believe the wording about compliance is in there because each of the executive orders listed, and there may be future executive orders that do the same thing, have placed not only on government, but all private businesses as well, the responsibility to develop this plan. So they're saying we're complying. We're doing this in an effort to comply with the governor's executive order, emergency orders on this subject.
Doug, just scrolling through, I guess, do we need to add anything in there as to so the executive orders that are listed have now been superseded? Do we need to indicate in any way, which resolution, or I mean, which EO had superseded those?
We could do that. I also thought about adding language. Well, let me back up. As we were working on this, by the way, was a template provided by the Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority. As we were working on it, another executive order came out. That's when the second one came out, and so they added it. Another template came out. I thought about adding in there something to the effect of, or any future orders, just not sort of rewrite this every time the orders change. And I don't think we'll have to. But at some point, the executive orders, the emergency orders will end. So I think the bottom line is protecting our employees and our citizens that visit our offices until they come up with some kind of a cure, if you will, or a vaccine to make it no longer a threat. And that's where the policy really is at, with the barriers you discussed earlier, with some of the masks and other things that are probably going to be a new normal here for a while. We just need to make sure it's in writing for two reasons, because it's probably the right thing to do, but it also means that we're complying with the orders, and that we could debate on whether that's appropriate or not, but that means we're also in line, an uninterrupted, unbroken chain to hopefully receive some reimbursement for the costs of this pandemic.
Right.
And I'd like to concur with what Doug said, very well said, except for the fact that when I do read from pages 5 of Appendix A, where it says critical infrastructure workers, that's page 5, and then it goes down to page 5 and page 6, it talks again, mimicking, my apologies, on under executive orders of the numbers that are given, and that could change, like you earlier stated. And then it talks about necessary government activities may continue, which includes activities performed by critical infrastructure workers, as well as the following government activities, including but not limited to public transit, trash pickup, disposal, etc. It goes on to where it says on page 6, where it talks about what kind of workers would it be described with. And that, so apparently it talks also about the suppliers, distribution centers, service providers. Page 6, if you see, it basically tells what is essential and what is not, seems like to me. Which includes workers at hotels and motels, provided that the hotels or motels do not offer additional in-house amenities such as gyms, pools, spas, dining, entertainment facility, meeting rooms, or like facilities. So that is somewhere I'm a little bit worried with that statement there on page 6, where we're expecting them to run their business at the same time we're telling them how to operate their business. As to what part of their business facility they can use and not use. I mean, the response plan for the employees in the county is good. Like I said earlier, and I'd reiterate, that serves the purpose of defeating the COVID-19. But when it comes down to telling our businesses how they can run and not run, I think they can use their judgment as it relates with the common sense. And of course, the protocols, the CDC guidelines has provided. So that is where I am a little bit worried with those statements. Page 5, page 6.
So Nemo and Doug, jump in anytime you want, but I just want you to understand, this is, for the most part, this document is a template that we got from our risk management group. And if we don't do this, there are implications or some things that we may or may not be eligible for. So this was put together by, MMRMA. So you want to add anything to that, Doug?
Yes, sir, if I may. You're correct. This was a template, and so it was written as a template, distributed for multiple different types of usage. Because we were kind of under the gun to get this finished and to you by today, we did not take out any of the language that doesn't really apply to the county. This is a county policy. As I see it, as I read it, it has no effect on private businesses or anything other, even the local municipalities. There's no effect on anything but county policy. And so those things could be taken out. I don't think that would be a problem. But as Mark has stated, the governor's order is pretty much copied and pasted in here with some additional language. And to be sure that we don't miss something, to be sure that we do keep that chain intact for reimbursement and recovery down the road, and mostly because of time, we just pretty much used the template as it was, inserting the county name and a few other things where appropriate. If that helps.
Well, and I think the other thing to note here is this is a working document. If once we've put it in place, there's really nothing that says we can't come back a week from now or a month from now or whatever the case and make a amendment, as long as we don't change the original intent of the preparedness plan. So any document of this nature, for the most part, is a working document. So,
Mark,
yes.
Doug, correct me if I'm wrong. Appendix A is simply stating and taking directly from the governor's executive orders what critical infrastructure workers are. And it's simply all out. And any of those people who are listed out, if any of them happen to be county employees in Hillsdale County, then this document would apply to them. Is that correct?
Those, yes, the list, Appendix A, is how the governor has defined critical infrastructure workers, yes.
Okay, so for example, Namu, if Hillsdale County ran a water and treatment plant, a water and wastewater plant, that is listed as critical workers. So under the governor's order, those people would be allowed to continue working because they're considered critical infrastructure workers. We don't have any water or wastewater plants, so that doesn't mean anything to us. We don't have any financial services. That doesn't mean anything. We don't deal with hazardous materials. That doesn't do anything. We don't have any public works that we deal with. The Drain Commission does, but the county itself does not. So those are all things that are the governor's order, which is what this came from. She's simply listing who she considers to be critical infrastructure workers. We're copying this so that the definition of critical infrastructure is clearly delineated in this order so everybody knows what it is. It doesn't all apply to us. In fact, most of it does not apply to us because we don't have most of these workers. Some we, if we have them, then it applies.
And thanks, Bruce, for that. And a lot of things don't apply to us as a county. Like I said, this is going to have to be a work in progress. Important factors of the appendixes, I think the sample for employee entry screening question, that's accurate because the townships are following those protocols, just so you know. Because yesterday when I went to the Pittsburgh Township, they had that questionnaire. You have to fill that questionnaire if you're coming to the township, as a visitor or whatever, you fill that questionnaire. So that is good, and that applies definitely to the county. Going a little bit forward over there, I wanted to start actually from the beginning. The plan where it talks about protective safety measures, that works okay. Sick leave, remote work, that also applies. Employee screening before entering the workplace, personal protection equipment, enhanced social distancing, so tools and equipment, enhanced hygiene, enhanced cleaning and disinfecting, and visitors. All of these apply. With the effect with the suspected cases, confirmed cases, those are good to put into our response plan. But the other part where it goes on to furthermore, like we discussed about the certification and adding the verbiage, because like I said, those executive orders will change and we'll have to keep up with this as a working document, probably every 2 weeks, in my opinion, because that's how fast the executive orders kept changing. The only problem here was the workers, like I told you, which were hotels or motor vehicle dealerships. And we're trying to tell them how to run their hygiene class, or we're trying to tell them, especially with the laundromats or hotels or critical labor union functions and so on with health and welfare funds. And so with all of this, having a response plan and still making sure as a county we receive the funds that are necessary for us, because I know it was reiterated earlier during your briefing, Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, that $3 billion was allotted for the state of Michigan for COVID-19. So in order to comply with all of those protocols in defeat and responding to COVID-19, we're having all of these details, responses plan, which is good. But the important other part is that we might have to change some wordings where we're going to tell how the businesses should and should not be in operation. Those parts can go other than just the response plan that protects our county, the signs, the questionnaire, the enhanced hygiene, enhanced cleaning and disinfecting, tools, equipment, visitors, the personal protective equipment, all of that should stay in the response plan.
Okay, so I think I understand what you're saying now. You think that this response plan allows the county to start telling private businesses how to do things. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, some of the
Okay.
parts like I talked about in 5 and 6, so those can be changed because we're then telling the businesses as to what we expect out of that to
Respect-
perform their hygiene and their enhanced
Respect, Commissioner, that's
purpose.
respectfully, Commissioner, that's what this says. If you look on the first page, and it says essential workers necessary to perform critical infrastructure functions. And you go to the last paragraph, it says only critical infrastructure workers or those required to conduct minimum basic operations may be permitted to perform in-person activities. This is coming from the governor's executive order. Okay, so it's stating this is for the county. The county, there's nothing in here that allows the county to tell any business how to run things, how to do things. Okay, this is for the county only. And it states in the last sentence of that last paragraph, workers designated as critical infrastructure workers or those required to conduct minimum basic operations will be informed of such designations in writing. The list that you see in back of critical infrastructure workers is an inclusive list. We as a county would go through that list. And if we have any workers who are on that list, considered to be part of it, then it is our responsibility to inform them in writing that they are critical infrastructure workers. That's how the two relate together. It does not give the county any ability to tell a business how to do things or what to do. There's nothing in here that allows the county to tell any business what to do. The listing of the critical infrastructure workers is simply so that we now have a list. We go through that, we look at our workers, and those workers for the county who fall in that critical infrastructure list, we have to inform them in writing, as it states here in that paragraph, that they are critical infrastructure workers. Doug, am I wrong in that?
No, sir, you're exactly correct. In fact, in the opening paragraph, it says it's a policy for the county, not for the public, not for anybody else, just the County of Hillsdale employees.
Does that help at all, Namu?
Yes, it does, Bruce. Again, to reiterate, what are we going to do with the executive orders that are mentioned? Because they're bound to change every 2 weeks, in my opinion. So we've entered those. So are we going to have this as a work in progress then?
I would say, Namu, that yes, that makes sense. Every time we meet, every 2 weeks, if the governors come out with something else, we just have an amendment ready and add it to it. That's what I would say. I mean, we're adopting it today based upon the situation as it exists today.
Bruce or Namu, I think Doug proposed earlier, some language that would allow this document to flow, with future EOs. I think if we draft just a sentence, and we can send that out for everybody's review, but if we put a sentence in here, then we don't have to go back into this document every 2 weeks, just
Businesses and operations.
That's fine with me.
So Doug and I will work on that later today, and we'll fire it out so that everybody can take a look at it. But we should be able to word it in such a manner that that we don't have to, constantly update it. I mean, I'm not going to disagree. This is a working document, but as far as keeping up with the EOs, I think she's headed for 100 of them because she's at 81 now. So I don't want to go down that rabbit hole if we can help it.
Yeah, but just think of all the wonderful resolutions we could have every week.
Oh my God.
Okay.
Resolutions will be the feel-good resolutions.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, anything else that Doug and I need to work on for the final version?
Yeah, yes, and like I said, I insist on looking at the page 6, just overall, if we were to look at the page 6, so that is my main concern. So there are a lot of things there involving, like I said, I reiterated earlier. So page 6 is if you could have a look at it and see those changes could be made, because there are several things that actually alarmed me there. So that's it.
I guess I would just reiterate, Bruce made the comment a minute ago that this document gives us no authority over local businesses. This pertains to the county. So,
Now, Mr. Chairman,
yep, go ahead, Bruce. Just go ahead.
just so that everybody's clear, when we adopt this, and we're going to have to hire a workplace coordinator, and we're also going to hire a person who stands at the door of each of our buildings and takes temperatures, questionnaires, and so on. If you've been to the hospital, as I've been the last couple of weeks, you're gonna have to go through a process to get into the building. And you need to remember, we have a county courthouse building, we have an annex, and we have a Cobb building where Mark is right now. And then we got friend of the court. And I guess Lifeways would be responsible for their own, and the health department would be responsible for their own, and MSU Extension. But we might have to hire up to 4 people to do the temperatures and ask the questionnaires and so on and so forth, because we can't funnel everybody through one spot. And we're going to have to think about that and how we're going to handle that and who we're going to hire.
Well, and in that aspect, if I may, Bruce, with what you just said, if I may have the permission to ask, then don't you think with those hiring, you would also need or require law enforcement to be involved then? Because some may not comply.
Well, I think it's all things we need to think about. I think all of us need to put our hats on the next couple of weeks and think about how we're going to deal with this.
Well,
So,
to make it simple, in my opinion, to make it simple is to have a response plan that adheres to protect our employees, our county employees, preventing and defeating the issue of the COVID-19, and then reworking that page 6 where it reiterates a whole bunch of other things as well. So I think right now it's a work in progress. I'm not quite sure if you want to table this or if you're going to take a motion. What your take on this is, because this truly does need some work.
Well,
resolution's already on the floor, Namo, so we need to vote on it, or we could table it, but this is time sensitive. If we don't.
That's fine, Mr. Chairman.
There are repercussions. So,
That's good, Mr. Chairman. That's a good, if it's on the table, I mean, if there is a motion and second already, then I think we should take some action with the responses right now and take it further so we don't take a whole bunch of time on this.
I think we do need a motion, don't we? Don't we still need a motion, Mark?
No, the resolution's on the floor.
resolution is on the floor. Who
Okay.
There's
supported?
already a motion and a support already. I think Julie, you supported
You
it.
supported it.
Well, we've been talking so long, I forgot.
Yes,
Written down.
I
That's right.
appreciate that.
Mark,
Yes, go ahead.
NAMU page 6, again, only applies to county employees. Doesn't apply to anybody else. It talks about that we might have to cross-train people and so on. All of this deals with the county. It doesn't deal with anything else. All I'm saying is that when we adopt this, and quite frankly, we're almost in the position where we have to, if we're going to get any reimbursement down the road, then we need to be putting in some serious thought as to how we're going to, once we decide to reopen as a county, once we're allowed to, and once we decide to, we're going to have to do some of these things that are in here. I want to point out to you that those costs will be reimbursed, hopefully, through the COVID money. But we have to have this plan in place. Then we have to get these people hired to do what we're talking about doing here for the county employees and the county buildings, nothing else. Doesn't apply to any private businesses. They got their own problem to deal with, and it's none of our business. Okay, but this deals with the county. And so what I'm trying to point out to all of you is we need to be thinking about how we can most efficiently do the things that are required in here once we reopen the county buildings to the public. And that doesn't need to be decided today. That could be decided down the road. We've got some time to think that through, but there are going to have to be some decisions made in that regard. Am I correct, Doug?
Doug, you still with us? Well, Bruce, I think the short answer is yes, you are correct. Okay, I think we've had enough discussion unless someone else has another comment. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Carolyn,
No.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaines,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiley,
Yes.
Commissioner Caswell.
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes 4-1. Thank you for all your input, and we'll continue keeping an eye on this. If you have things on this document, please email Doug or I, and we'll certainly investigate them further and get back to you. As well as we'll put a sentence in there and send that out within the next day or so. As far as chasing those EOs, we don't need to be chasing those every day or every 2 weeks. So, okay. Moving along. And of course, a lot of this applies to if and when we reopen. One thing I guess I'd like feedback from the Board of Commissioners is one of the calls that I had with all the elected and department head, we were discussing, of course, the protection over the counters, which has already been discussed. We were also talking about setting up appointments so that we could help limit the number of people in the building at any given time. So by doing it by appointments, that would help, eliminate having too many people in a office at a time. But the question I have for you all, and I'd like feedback, there was some discussion about putting a sign on the door that said, we are going to require masks be worn if you enter the building. So I guess I'm asking for comments on that, please.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I may, resolution that just got passed, and of course, it's a work in progress, like we reiterated. I think that also indicated in the personal protective enhancement, that part where it would be wide that, because if you're going to go the route where the county has a resolution, then you might want to go with that the way it says, because and I don't see if you want to put a sign or not, or maybe yes, the signs were, I think the signs should be where you would have a sheet of paper where it does talk about hand washing, etc., and all of that, or where that big stop sign would be, because I believe that will be posted in county buildings. Isn't that right?
Right, right.
Mark, this is Ruth.
Yep.
I think that, as county commissioners, we're the leadership of Hillsdale County. And I think during a crisis like this, we're supposed to be leading by example. And, I think that we should require people to wear masks because, for one reason, you sent us that thing from Rebecca Burns that had a graph on it, and it showed people, wearing masks, not wearing masks, and all that kind of stuff. And it said, know how masks protect you during COVID-19. You sent us that a few days ago.
Right.
We're in this for the long haul. This COVID-19 thing is going to last for weeks and months. And we've all got to get on board and realize that it's not just all about us. I might not want to wear one personally, or you might not want to wear one personally. But the fact of the matter is, when we don't wear one, we could be spreading the virus to somebody else. And now that's impacting somebody else. It could impact up to 40 other people from what I'm hearing. So it's not just about us. It's about we're all in this together, and we all have to work together. And I think that we should require people to wear masks. Now, I am aware of a couple of people who are saying that for some sort of a medical reason, it restricts their breathing and they can't wear one. In extreme cases, if there's somebody who can't wear one because of a medical reason or just refuses to wear one or refuses to comply, I believe they can still do all the business that they need to do through the courthouse over the phone, or they come to the door or whatever, that way that they wouldn't have to necessarily come in. But I think the people that come in have to would be required to wear a mask. That's my opinion, sir.
I'd just like to make a comment also. I don't disagree with that. I think that our risk management plan is presented to us by our risk management company, and it says that it should be required. But I also think that we have alternatives if somebody is medically not capable of wearing a mask, or if they just wish not to, then we have to have some kind of alternatives for them to conduct business online, over the phone, etc. So I would just want that to be also posted, that there are alternatives if you cannot or are unwilling to wear a mask.
Thank you.
Mark,
Go ahead.
if you're going to require masks, which I get, then on page 13 of the document that we just passed, it's got a big stop sign. It says stop only enter building if you are a healthy visitor, have an appointment, or a company employee. You could just add another bullet point to that says and are wearing a mask.
Correct.
And I think also, if you're going to require masks, then I think we need to have a stockpile of masks so that if people show up and have driven in from the southern part of the county and don't have a mask and they want to pay their taxes or whatever, we should have a mask that we can give them that will then allow them to get into the building. So I think we need to take into consideration that as well, that we need to have a stockpile to give the public if they come in and don't have their mask with them.
I think that's a good idea, Bruce, because sometimes I've been in a couple situations with people at the store where they claim they forgot their mask. I mean, they might have just been saying that, I realize. But it's like you're saying, if somebody has drove a far distance and they're there, we want to cooperate with them, and we want them to cooperate with us. And so we should have masks. Are those available through the health department, Bruce or Mark? You guys are on that board.
I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
I don't know if they can get us some or not, Ruth. Mark, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Probably what we'll end up doing is looking at what we have for a supply through Region 1. Doug and I have been, kind of monitoring that. It's kind of caught up. At first, we were having to tap into what the health department could get us. But Region 1 is finally caught up on most items. We're getting some rather cheap masks that are, they're not perfect, but they're better than nothing. So yeah, we could probably get some. My one reservation on having masks, of course, if we've got someone standing at the door, checking temperatures and asking questions, much like Bruce alluded to earlier, then we'd have control of that box of masks. I don't want to leave a box of masks sit out and they're gone in one day because everybody's grabbing a handful of them. But like I say, if somebody's there at the door, that helps control that situation. So.
And I think,
Yep, go ahead.
I went to an assisted living facility center for seniors, and it was not in Hillsdale County, but I went there probably about a week ago. And when I walked in there, they had a desk set up at the door, and they had somebody that was taking temperatures, and they had hand sanitizer there, and they had masks, and then she was writing down every single person's name, the time, the temperature, all that information of everybody that was going in there. So that kind of sounds like something that we're going to have to start doing. Am I correct?
It's something that, as Bruce indicated, we're going to have to be doing some serious thinking between now and the next meeting, because we'll either have to get some volunteers or hire some people to help facilitate that. So.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, go ahead.
One important thing is, I know we're talking about the masks and of course, putting up the signs. More than anything else, and I think you would agree, is to have a practice of having some sanitization bottles or those little units in different corridors of the room, or at least at the entrance of the county, or towards the stairs of the county, because that is a critical aspect. If hands are not clean, they chose to go to the face. And they just chose to go to the face, then you incur all kinds of germs, which includes the COVID-19. So I think the biggest protocol over here is to making sure that we have the sanitation, those sanitation bottles installed, or at least kept in various corridors of the building.
So probably you haven't been in the building recently, but Randy and I, it's probably been 8 weeks ago now. I helped procure them through medical care facility. Randy installed them. We have hand sanitizer units inside the entryway of all the buildings. I know there's even one in the clerk's office that we installed. They're battery operated. You don't even have to touch the machine. You just slide your hand underneath. It gives you some sanitizer, and there you go. So those are really nice units. So yeah.
Well, I have to stop by the county now.
So, okay, very good. Thank you. Let's see, I have an application I get to use this week, Meetings to Go with MAC. They have scheduled our Ag and Tourism Committee meeting, which I serve on for the state, Friday at 10 a.m. So if anybody's got any comments that you want me to share during that meeting, please email me as far as the Ag and Tourism Committee. So Doug and I will be conducting another EOC or emergency management type conference call tomorrow morning, much like we've done for the last 6, 7, 8 weeks. I don't know. I've kind of lost track of how many we've had. But we're just keeping in touch with the village, or excuse me, the city managers, the sheriff's department. I think I've indicated to all of you that part of that discussion is what's being done, what's the status of PPEs, and of course, the health department is on that call as well as medical care. And, so just kind of a weekly touch base and keep everybody informed of what's going on. The hospital usually sits in on that as well. And mentioning the hospital, Farm Bureau has taken an interest in the rural hospital dilemma. I was on a conference call last week, and Farm Bureau is going to be running a story. As soon as I get my hands on it, I'll send it out to you. They've taken a sincere interest in the impact that the loss of any rural hospital would have, not only on the rural community, but on agriculture as a whole throughout the state. So they're looking into it. They've made it a priority issue going forward. So as I say, I'll send that story out to you. I know they've talked to JJ. They talked to Jennifer Lewis, who is the district for this district as far as Michigan Farm Bureau. And they had me on the conference call, as well as Stuart Weldon. Andy's son serves as the county Farm Bureau president currently. So I want to encourage everyone to continue to use carry out from your local restaurants. They are very happy to see you. I know we've received some heartfelt thank yous when we pick up our order. So the last thing I have to share with you today, the emergency order that I put into place back on March 30th, if I recall correctly. And then we had the special meeting on April 7th to vote on it and extend it. That, after conversation with Doug, it was set to expire today unless we took action. Doug and I both feel that the new cases outside of medical care, so countywide excluding medical care, the new cases has started to flatten in our opinion. We also feel that the PPE situation has gotten better. It's not perfect by any means, but has gotten better. We also feel that the declaration, if it's going to help us in filing for reimbursement, it's been in place. It's done its job as far as putting us hopefully in a better position. And so our recommendation to the board is to let it expire today. Now, that is not to say that we can't reinstitute it if we need to, but at this point in time, it is our proposal to the board that we let that expire. That's all I have, folks. Any questions or comments? All right, that brings us back to public comment. Anyone on the call that would like to address the board at this point in time?
Mark,
Yes, Ruth.
Brad Boner was trying to make a comment apparently and earlier, and apparently he was muted or whatever and couldn't get through to us or couldn't be heard. So he sent it by email and I forwarded it to all of us. So you'll find it on your email when we get off the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments at this time? Hearing none, additional business. Bruce, you got anything for us?
Yeah, after I got done the legislature, I continued to join the Farm Bureau every year, and I'd like to point out the Farm Bureau just sent through the mail a gift certificate that could be used in about 4 different restaurants that they hooked up with. $5 gift certificate. You mentioned the restaurant, so I used that and went over to Johnny T's and got Beth and my meal one night. I think it was Saturday night, and it's a nice little meal. So, and Mother didn't have to cook, and Father can't cook.
That is correct. So that encourages everyone to go out and join Farm Bureau. So during the next crisis, you'll get your gift certificate to use for local restaurants. So. Anything else, Bruce?
That's it.
Okay, Julie?
No, thank you. I appreciate everybody's effort in the county to keep everybody safe and to continue business. And I just wanted to put that out there that I appreciate everyone's effort. Thank you.
Ruth? You got anything for us, Ruth?
We said about, I want to thank Mark and Doug and everybody else that has been putting in extra time and trying to keep our county covered and trying to keep everybody safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Namu?
Yes, I just also want to thank everybody for all their work, and especially during these unprecedented times. I just want to say that, we can all do our part, not only as citizens, but commissioners that can keep the atmosphere loving and kind and peaceful, and be a person of honor to everybody. And so I know there are a lot of the county may not be open for the public at the moment in complete full with the time frame, but as commissioners, at least I want to open up that I'm available on my phone. I'm available in person, keeping 6 feet distancing, of course, and I'm available for our citizens, our constituents. So we continue to appreciate their hard work also during this unprecedented time. So stay encouraged, everyone.
Mark.
Thank you. So I think I sent out information out to you all on the medical care facility. If I didn't, I'll reiterate it now. Testing of all staff and all residents was completed last week. We have a baseline, and we know exactly where we're standing. One of the comments in Terry's report out to or between Terry and the health department is we need to stay vigilant, even though we know where the baseline is, even though the county is starting to, the county as a whole looks like it's starting to flatten. We need to stay vigilant. The other day on the news, South Korea, because they've opened up more and more, they've had a spike in new cases. So I guess my closing comment is continue to be vigilant, use the masks when you go to the store. The masks protect you as well as others, and use best practices and stay safe. And with that, we're done for today, and thank you all.
Mark?
Yes, go ahead, Bruce.
I also wanted to mention, I got a phone call from a constituent saying that they'd heard a rumor, it came out of Ohio, that the hospital was going to close and only had 2 weeks left and so on. And I just want to clearly state nothing could be further from the truth. Our hospital has a significant fund balance. Our hospital is getting reimbursement from the federal government. It is not going to close. And I just want to make that statement. Thank you.
I guess along with that, Bruce, I would echo what you echoed a couple of weeks ago, was the hospital is a very safe place. If you've got lab work to do, x-rays that are needed, whatever, you're probably safer going to that hospital. Not probably, you are safer going there to get your medical needs tended to than you are going to Walmart. So,
Mark, this is Ruth. I would like to kind of piggyback off what Bruce was saying, because a few days ago, there was an article in the Jackson paper that MLive, SIPPAT, about the Hillsdale Hospital being in financial trouble. And I don't know where that article came from. I have no idea, but my phone started blowing up with people from Jackson area calling me and saying what's going on down there. And I'm glad that Bruce made that comment, because we need to snuff that out. And I know personally, I know people that live in District 1 that have been up to the hospital. One fellow in my district had a colonoscopy up there last Thursday, and there's been others having procedures done up there and couldn't tell me how good of care and how good everything went and everything else. So we need to support our local hospital.
Very good. Thank you, Ruth. All right, with that, we'll more than likely be doing this again in 2 weeks. So stay safe and thank you all for participating. We are adjourned.